So let's talk about this, because I've always joked around with my students, although it's really a half joke, that socially awkward people have two problems. One, they're socially awkward. Two, they don't know they're socially awkward. In my case, like most 20-year-old guys, I was socially awkward. But the one saving grace was that at least I could pick up on the fact that other people were getting weirded out.
Yeah.
So I'd go into meetings and I would say something, and the reactions were horrible. I mean, people would be like, I could see it in their eyes. They would start rolling their eyes, code for, here goes this guy again who's gonna be talking.
Yeah.
Or I would say something and they would squint, like, what? Why did he just talk about that? And I didn't know why, but I knew something was wrong.
Yeah.
And so like you took your journey reading all these books and practicing, I did the same. That was a saving grace, but what if you have difficulty in picking up on these signs?
And I wish I had a better answer, but this is where the outside observer and the coach comes in. One of the most valuable things I do for my client, and especially so late stage founders, meaning that the founder of a company that has now grown to a certain size, very often they've never gotten the training in social skills.
Right.
And the company has exploded, and now they're at a stage where these skills are needed and they don't know where to turn.
Right.
And one of the first things I do with them is a shadow day, where I am their shadow for an entire day. And I download all the body language, the everything, and the debrief from that is huge.
How do they take it? Because if you give someone feedback—
Pre-selection.
Yeah, okay, so they want it, true.
Yeah.
All right, that's a great point.
Hey, if your students are in the brain trust.
Yeah, they want it.
Yeah.
No, they want it.
If they like you, they like brutal feedback.
They absolutely do. So this is a great reminder for everyone. We have thousands of people in this program. It's very easy to get an accountability partner. It's very easy to get someone who will critique you on YouTube. You could have a 10-minute conversation. You could read from a book and say, give me feedback about what did I do well, what did you notice, and how did you feel?
Okay, let's talk about accountability. And gender. So one of the things that women tend to do more than men, though young men tend to do it too, is that they tend to nod too much. So one nod is fine. 6 in a row is not.
Why do they do it?
Because they want to show you that they're really, really listening.
Right.
Problem is, it makes them appear over-eager, insecure, nervous.
Yeah.
So one of the best accountability things, if you've got someone who sees you often, a significant other, a coworker, let's say that you agree that learning how to nod your head less is worth $30.
Okay.
You get $30 in $1 bills, and you hand them to this coworker accountability partner. Every time they catch you nodding 6 times in succession, the bobblehead, they took a dollar bill, and in front of you, they rip it up.
Wow.
They can't give it to charity. They cannot use it for themselves. It has to be wasted, destroyed.
Okay.
In a depraved manner.
Love it.
Thank you.
I love the idea also of just talking to your friends. A lot of times we don't realize our friends want to help us if we just ask them.
Yes. Now, one of the other things I do for clients right from the start is a deep dive 360. And not one of those off-the-shelf questions, which again, as you can probably hear from my voice, and I should be more diplomatic, but most 360 tools are crap, and for that matter, most coaches are crap. Sadly.
Well, let's talk, what is a 360 tool for everyone watching?
Okay, so a 360 comes from the expression of a 360 degree. What it actually means in practice is that the whoever's conducting 360 will interview people below you who report to you, people at your level around you, and people above you.
Yep.
And then, if that person is really good, and the best 360s are always done under the cover of complete anonymity, you will get dirt that you never— I've had clients break down in tears at hearing their 360s. Now, to their credit, after they had the breakdown and they realized whatever it is, the big elephants in the room or the dead fish that had been stinking, those are 2 very good concepts for your difficult conversations, by the way. Elephants in the room is the big things that everyone knows and no one talks about.
Yeah.
Dead fish is something that, a resentment usually, that one person has in a closet, and the longer you leave it in there, the more it stinks.
Great.
Thank you. So it's not just that, it's also the learning of the hurts that they have caused or involuntarily betrayed someone. With all of these, I've seen them be determined to turn situations around and operate such dramatic transformations in their relationships. The 360 gives you information you couldn't get otherwise.
This is so fascinating because if you think about health, it's physically apparent.
Annual checkup.
Well, annual checkups, but let's just say someone is overweight.
Yeah.
It's physically apparent that they're overweight.
Yeah.
And every day they look in the mirror and they see it. Now they can choose whether or not to change that, but it's apparent. A 360 review, really like a shovel unearthing something, you don't have to fix it.
Yeah.
You could go through life. In fact, you made it here.
Yeah.
You've already been pretty successful. You're still alive. You have a job. You're doing fine. It's almost like you're digging for problems.
You are.
It's very uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable and it's incredibly brave. And when I'm given the license to do a full deep dive, I really have to prepare them, and I tell them, you're gonna find stuff that will really shake you.
Right.
And often they're, in the cocky funny stage still, and you're like, bring it on.
Oh yeah, I got this.
Seriously.
Tactics. What can we do to improve our charisma?
This is what I love. It's like turning the science, arcane, complex science, into actual applicable tools. So, presence, biggest bang for your buck. And when we were saying, if you've ever been in a conversation and your mind was wandering, people, I can guarantee, picked up on it every time.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that even if you control the main expression on your face, sooner or later, what's called a micro-expression will flash. And because the person across from you reads your face and it catches expressions in as little as 17 milliseconds, guaranteed that they will see that micro-expression. In addition, when you're not present, your eyes kind of glaze over and you have a split-second delay in your facial reactions. And on a gut level, they get the feeling that something's not quite right, you're being inauthentic.
Yeah. And then they reflect that back to you, and if you're socially skilled, you pick up on it, and now we've got a downward spiral.
Perfect. So, how do we stop that?
Okay.
My favorite one, and this I'd like to use for your 7-day challenge.
Perfect.
Is focus on the physical sensations in your toes.
Okay.
So the science behind that is that focusing on your toes makes your brain get back into your body, because we so often operate dead from the neck down, right?
Yeah.
And of course forces you to scan all the way down to your toes. It gets you very physically present in the moment. Obviously, you focus on your toes for 1 or 2 seconds and then you get back to the conversation. Toes is a good one.
Okay.
Another one is pay close attention to the colors in their eyes, really close attention. And this is a great one for 2 reasons. Use it for dating. One, we have really complex arrays of colors that can be quite dazzling.
Okay.
2, it gives you the kind of deep, soul-searching eye contact for which Clinton was famous.
I see.
So obviously don't overdo it.
So let's talk about this, because the level of tactics I want to dive into is very deep here. When people talk about eye contact, I've met people who have clearly studied some eye contact book,
Yeah.
and they talk to me like this.
Yeah.
So, tell me about your next product.
Yeah.
What are you planning to do? And I'm like, man, I feel really uncomfortable right now. How do we strike that balance?
I think that there's way too much body language for you to control consciously. And one of the things I'd like your students to realize right now is, were you aware, until I mention it, of your eyelids fluttering in front of your eyes?
No.
Were you aware of the weight of your tongue in your mouth?
No.
How about the position of your toes?
No.
Have you forgotten your eyelids again?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. There's so much body language that is regulated not by your conscious mind, but by your subconscious mind. So don't try to control the output, the body language. There's too much. And even if you manage to control the main expressions, sooner or later, a micro-expression would flash and you're screwed. Instead, go straight to the source, which is your subconscious mind. And this is where method actors really made a breakthrough in Hollywood, because what they do is that instead of controlling the output, they get into state. And what I mean by that is, play chemist with your own brain.
Totally.
If you get yourself into a mental state where you are genuinely fascinated with the other person, that's going to come across in your eye contact.
So you say things like, wow, that's amazing. And it doesn't even matter what I'm saying.
Yeah, you genuinely mean it.
I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah. Now, of course, let's take that one level deeper, because I've said, get yourself into a state where you're genuinely fascinated with the other person. What are you gonna ask me next? Great, how? I'm not gonna leave your students with a, become fascinated with people.
Tell us how.
You've got a couple of ways. One, you know how in indie movies, I'm thinking Juno, I'm thinking Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
In indie movies, Clerks, Mallrats, and all the Kevin Smith, it doesn't matter if the main character is the most uninteresting guy or gal, just by the fact that they're the hero of that indie movie, you start really looking at their life. And you start really getting interested in this character. Pretend the person you're speaking to is the hero of an indie movie. And start to think about, so who is this character? What's his life like?
Yeah.
And that automatically gets you on a I'm interested brain state.
I like this. I like this because we have two different approaches on it. You are focusing on some of the internal and external. I focus a lot on the external. A couple of things that I've done or I've helped some of my friends do is, first of all, just going to YouTube and looking at different actors in different movies. So imagine the President Bartlett on The West Wing. How does he act versus the intern? Their body language is totally different. And they're both master actors. You can learn a lot from Hollywood. The other thing I do is, and this is something I only started recently, I noticed that some people, every time they have a conversation, the other person leaves feeling something, usually feeling good, feeling positive. And so before I would go into like a meetup or something, I would just stop, just for 5 seconds, and I would say, what do I want this person to feel after they meet me? And do I want them to feel laughter or entertained or intrigued? And that totally changed the way I started to do it and started to interact with them. So this was very external. I wasn't going into necessarily, my subconscious, but I was saying, what do I want this interaction to be like? And then I can craft my own interaction accordingly.
So that is awesome, and then you have to let go of the expectation. Because if you go in there thinking this must go well, then anytime you see coldness on their face,
you start to,
and then that spiral you were talking about. And what you've mentioned is fantastic for day-to-day life. One of the reasons why I'm so adamant about doing the deep work is that it's kind of like, if you don't do the deep work, it's like putting pretty balconies and turrets on a house with faulty foundations.
You have to do the deep work. Because that's going to manifest itself in everything.
A and B, at the first earthquake, everything falls apart. So if you do the deep work, it means that when it's at crunch time and you've just fucked up in the middle of the biggest presentation of your life, if you've done the deep work, you know how to get back in the zone.
Yes.
And the externals will help you get there.
Love it.
So which is actually a great transition to the mental side of charisma. Because when people ask me, what is the single biggest inhibitor to charisma? It's always inside their mind.
Yes.
You don't have to change your external appearance. Beauty is irrelevant to charisma. And in fact, being charismatic in studies has been shown to make the perception of your attractiveness increase. So yes, you'll get more girls or guys. The mental side is really where it's where it's at. So one of the reasons that we're not present in an interaction is often because we've got an internal critical voice that's constantly beating us up and monitoring everything we say.
Like the classic one, I don't want to look stupid.
Yeah, that's perfect. So imagine that you say something, and then in your head you go, oh, that was stupid.
Or it's like telling a joke where you're nervous and
that
you
comes
pull
across.
back. It totally comes across and you pull back before you deliver the punchline. So you'll say it like, and you won't go all in. And I know I've done this before. And the most infuriating thing of all is when you say something and like nobody really laughs. And then someone else says the same thing and the room cracks up.
Oh man.
And that's when you know it's not the joke, it's not the content, it's the way you were delivering it, but also the confidence to actually go all in.
Perfect. So it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And even more than that, it's how you feel while you are saying it. So let's go to the, oh, that was stupid example. If you say that was stupid, what happens to your face?
It has a grimace.
Yeah, it cringes, all that, right? So this was self-directed criticism. But they don't know that.
Right, so they think it's, oh, that's interesting.
All they know is that while you were listening to them, looking at them, presumably thinking about them, they accurately saw this cringe, this judgment, this tension across your face. So naturally, they're going to assume that it's about them. So here's another, and this is not the challenge, but here's one thing that I'd like your students to think of. The next time that you see someone go cold or cringe, or that you genuinely do read judgment or tension across their face, try to remember that in 80% of the cases, It's about them. It's self-directed.
Got it. So what do you do after that?
Have compassion.
Got it.
Literally, because then that's going to relax your face, and then it's a positive spiral, which you can also start.